Did you know that gratitude is something that you can cultivate? Well, the holidays have wrapped up, and I love to talk about gratitude, even in episode 92, where 4 weird things that I was grateful for. So you can check that out in case you missed it. And today I am going to talk with one of my favorite guests, Larissa Traquair, and she is going to share some advice to her younger self, how she has continued to cultivate gratitude while going through therapy, while grieving, whether it's community, a family member, a spouse, a pet, or friends, and more. I hope you'll really enjoy. Hey, it's Hillary, host of Hill Talk's Momentum and Midlife podcast. As an occupational therapist turned entrepreneur at 50, I'm on a mission to connect, motivate, and inspire people over 40, 50, and 60 to know that no matter what, you can reach for that dream and know you're not alone as we create the... Hello and welcome. Today, I get the honor, privilege, and blessing to talk with Larissa Traquair, also known as the Grateful Chick. She has been live broadcasting for years on gratitude, on our attitudes, and that we get to choose to be grateful. For over 10 years, she has been posting minimum 3 unique things to be grateful for, not just grateful for the dog, grateful for the house, grateful for food, but so much more. I first interviewed Larissa in episode 5 of The Grateful Chick. And then again in episode 13, Say Something and Do Hard Things, where we talked about grief. And today we are going to go into so much more. We're talking about continuing through the hard stuff, choosing hard things even during the holidays, because this is going to be coming out right around Christmas time, 2023. And we get to set up our attitude of gratitude. And today we're talking about therapy in the grieving process, advice to her younger self, something unexpected that's happened since we last talked, and some weird things to be grateful for. And if you caught my episode, I think it's 93, Weird Things I Was Grateful For, then you'll enjoy this episode. Welcome, Larissa.
Thank you, Hillary. And so good to see you again and get to do this, right? Because I love, like, when we talk about prayer requests and then nobody follows up and there's praises to talk about and new things to talk about. And so it's great to be able to do follow-ups and get back together as we both are journeying through life, right? So thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. And we're just going to start out with, what's your fun, quirky fact? Because sometimes I get a little too serious too soon, and I think I just need to start with a little bit more fun. What's some things people don't necessarily know about you?
Okay, well, one of them, people who follow me would guess for sure, but I thought it was fun. So I have 2, but they'll be short. So I love the candy Smarties, and I actually did a reel about Smarties. And I recently found out that there is a National Smarties Day that lands actually on my wedding anniversary. So my late husband and I got married on October 2nd. And the cool thing is they picked that day, October 2nd, based on the creator of Smarties, his birthday. So I love Smarties. I love the candy. And like I said, I did a reel about it and talking about, kind of tying things together for some reason. So there's that. And then another quirky thing about me is I don't like my cursive writing. So I mostly print everything I write now. And my cursive signature, I was just thinking about this the other day, Hillary, my cursive signature, which I would rather sign in printing, which they will not let you do, it's illegal, is so illegible now. Like it's barely like you can barely tell the first letter of the first and last name. But I'm okay with it. I'm in a season where I'm like, I really don't care. The credit card company's not complaining. They're taking my money. So anyways, those are just I have many of them.
Well, we just need to know that our quirks are our unique things, and they help people understand us. They help people know that, oh, if I have a quirky thing that's different, that's okay. That's the beauty of being different and unique for sure.
Absolutely. I agree.
Well, we have not gotten to catch up in a while. And because I know you, Larissa, I know that we can just dive into some of these conversations. And you did mention briefly, you lost your dear husband, Bill,
Hmm.
a few years ago now.
Yeah.
And we had committed that we were going to catch up like each year to kind of show the evolution of who shows up when you're grieving, when you're a widow, who continues the support. So let's start with tell me a little bit about the benefits of therapy through the grieving process.
Yeah, this has been one of kind of the really good surprises for me, is how therapy has really helped in the grieving process. And I'll just start it by saying I have been um, in therapy on and off for, most of my adult life, right? So you understand being married to an active duty Marine and marriage, right? And so those things can create interesting scenarios, and then you take us overseas, and then that's a whole nother ball game. And so it's not this is not my first rodeo, but I believe for those of us who have decided to follow Jesus, that seeing a Christ-centered therapist is a must. And I know, many people can argue that, and that's okay, because we're not here to argue. But it's important because God has gifted therapists, right? They actually go to school, and they have been gifted to help us navigate the absolutely brutal realities of grief that no one warns us about or are not talking about, right? And those who have followed me for a while have heard me say that we live in a grief averse culture. And we don't, and as the church, the big C church, we do not do grief or messy conversations well. We just don't. I don't have all the answers for that. I have some, but so in my therapy appointments, we're not just talking about grief. So if someone's listening and they're like, well, I'm not grieving, or or I'm not in an active grieving state, that is okay. Because we're not just talking, in my case with my therapist, I'm not just talking about being a widow. We're talking about secondary grief, like losing friends, which you and I have talked a tiny bit about, I think, on the last episode. Secondary grief, like losing security, and so much more, right? And we are talking about other things like how I view God, which is why it's important that I'm seeing a Christ-centered therapist, and how some of my coping mechanisms are no longer helping me. And this is just a few things, right? Because I basically have a conversation like you and I are having with my therapist. And so it's not like I come in and she like lays me down on the couch, and says, okay, so tell me all your deep wounds. That's not how it's a conversation, just like this.
Right.
And when you've
Right.
built trust over 2+ years with this particular therapist, you
Yeah.
feel comfortable with just diving in, exactly like we've done on this podcast. So in therapy, other things have come up, and talking about those things and finding solutions together has been so helpful, not only in my grief journey, but just everyday life. Like some of the stuff she has said has helped me in business. It's helped me in other relationships. It's helped me to just do life better. So I know, I'll close with this on this particular topic. I know one-on-one counseling may not be for everyone, but you won't know until you try it, right? And so I highly recommend it. And there are therapists that cost different prices, that they run the gamut, right? And so there really is no excuse, especially if you have a church that has like maybe lay pastors who do that kind of thing. And I have done a lot of reels on this, I call them therapy thoughts, or thoughts from a widow. It just kind of depends on what the topic is. So it has really helped, Hillary. Of course, the Lord has helped, therapy has helped, and some key people, people I can trust, people who have been in my life for a very long time, who are willing to walk this hard journey with me. But therapy is huge, and I highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough.
I agree so much. And I try to tread lightly, certainly with my friend who I love, who I also get to talk to, who I also watch you do these brave, incredible things like starting your Cultivate community for gratitude, because being grateful through hard times is not easy, people. I mean,
No,
this
it is not.
is hard. this is hard work. And for people of faith, sometimes I don't know how they get through a day or a week or a year without an anchor of faith.
Right.
And certainly, I have friends across many faith communities. I did just lose kind of my Muslim mother, who raised me since I was 16, who
Yeah.
passed away. And then my sisters there that I got to go. And people said, "Why are you here? You are not Egyptian." And my friends rallied around and said, "Hillary was adopted into this community when she was 16, and we love her and she loves us." And it was such a beautiful voicing of, we can think differently, we can believe differently, but we can show up in love. And I loved that part.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
One of the things we don't talk about as midlife women, women over 50,
Mhm.
is grieving through the aging process and the changes, the hormones, the abilities, the concentration, all of those other challenges. So when you wrap that in the nuggets of the grieving process of becoming a widow, going through the midlife transition, perimenopause, menopause, all the things, and then you just put in friendship dynamics, family of origin dynamics, and all of those things, I
Yeah.
think about, wow, I'm amazed that women can talk and have conversations and encourage each other.
Amen. Yeah.
So,
It's not been easy.
in this space today, what would be your advice to your younger self? And I don't know how far back you'd want to go. So let's start with the age of who you'd be talking to of your younger self.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I would be talking to like 10, 11, or 12-year-old, maybe even 13-year-old Larissa, and maybe even a longer gamut. I didn't think about that when I thought, because, a lot of people ask this question like on social media, and I think it's a brilliant question and one that we could ask, every 3 months, every year, and maybe it would be a little bit different as we have grown. So, but I think this advice would be great for, almost any age, maybe not a toddler, 5 or 6, because you're just really not thinking in this space. But I have a lot of advice for my younger self, and I'll just share two of those pieces of advice. For one, learn to be okay with people not liking you or hearing your side of the story. You will never be everyone's cup of tea, and that is okay. And what I will preface to say is that both of these I have learned the hard way because it's a trauma response. Some people call this people pleasing. I don't know if there's another word for it, but it's not being authentic, and it's kind of watching my words, which, as believers, we do want to be careful. There's a time and a place for everything, but choosing not to speak the truth or worrying about other people, it's a trauma response from the way I was raised. So I know we're not going to go down that road, but I was raised by a single abusive parent who, potentially was narcissistic and definitely dealt with depression, and was a single mom trying to raise a young girl and dealing with all of her own things. So I'll say that, and I'm not here to blame everything on my mom. I'm an adult now, and I have to take responsibility, and I am, which goes back to why I go to therapy. That is me. It's one of many ways I'm taking responsibility for that. So I learned to not be okay, with if people didn't like me, right? Because if I did something and my mom acted like she didn't like me, then that doesn't feel good. Nobody at any age wants to feel that way. So I've had to learn that. And I did a reel on this one, is not everybody is going to like you, no matter what you say or what you do. Not everybody's going to like you. And sometimes, no matter what you do or say, some people will like you and stick with you, as you and I talked about earlier about these long-term friends, right? That there's nothing we can do or say that's going to cause them to not like us. So that's one piece of advice. And then I kind of rolled into the other piece would be learn to speak the truth about how you feel and be okay with others' response to that. Right. Because my learned response was, I tell you the truth, Hillary, you hurt my feelings when you said XYZ. And in this case, my mother would lash out at me. Like I wasn't allowed to be truthful, even respectful, because I was respectful. If there was, my mom could not complain about that. But part of that was a trauma response. I was being respectful out of fear. It wasn't from a good place, but I was still being respectful. But what I've learned is that I have to be okay. And this is still a process. I have to be okay with how you respond when I tell you the truth, right? And you disagree, let's say we're having a conversation, you disagree, or you leave, right? People have not been my friend, have unfriended me literally over, if I could tell you at least one story, it's like the craziest thing. And then you know what is so sad, Hillary, is that I thought we were benefiting each other and I thought things were fine. And I was just being honest about something that was, there's no way around. There's just no other way to look at it. And it was sad and hard. And I've just learned that I have to be okay with it. But not only did they say that they were no longer going to be in my life, but they like literally unfriended me on Facebook. Like this is insanity. This is insanity, but this is what we're dealing with. So,
Right.
and it triggers me because now I'm like, oh, great. Now I've had another hard conversation. Here is evidence that I tell the truth and people can't, handle it, I guess. But I've learned that I have to be okay with that because I can't not be truthful. And I'm talking about speaking truth in love. And that's, again, a whole nother
In love.
podcast, right? Yeah. I'm not yelling, screaming, being mean spirited, all the things.
You're
And
not being brutally honest.
no,
You're being honest in a loving and thoughtful and considerate way.
right.
But you know what it says when people reject our honesty is that they can't handle it because of some of their unresolved issues. But sometimes we can take it as recovering people pleasers, take it personally, or it can inhibit us. But I love the maturity that you've adopted of being okay. Okay, this person's no longer my friend. Wow, that hurt far more than I imagined.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of surrendering and releasing. I mean,
Yeah,
wow. So
definitely.
being okay, speaking your truth and being okay with their response.
Yeah, being okay with their response. And that's hard. And I'm still working on that. Please hear my heart. I mean, I deal with this probably, if not once a month, every couple of months that I'm in therapy. My therapist is constantly reminding me their response is not your responsibility. You still have to, and what's funny is I feel like people are so comfortable with me telling me their truth about how they feel about what I've done or said. And here's another piece of like side note. This is the great thing that has helped me with therapy. There is so much evidence in our lives if we are taking note and looking back at it. So this particular person, and it's been more than one person, has literally unfriended me in this season as a widow. We're not talking years ago. We're talking in this season as a widow. That I look back at our relationship and there was evidence that this was going to go this direction. It wasn't the first time something similar has happened and I let them back in. And so my therapist keeps reminding me, look to the evidence, look at the evidence, and other people will tell you the same thing, right? Their response, their body language, their words, they're all evidence.
Of kind of those yellow flags, the cautionary ones, the red flags, the hard stop. And I love that you're, able to recognize of that. Okay, now I've got 20/20 vision. I can look back and see there were these signs, these were these signals. And whether it's in a relationship, a friendship, a family member, sometimes they say people that are going through like abusive relationships, it will take them 7 times to leave. And this is not just physical, but mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological abuse situations. And sometimes in friends, there can be unhealthy dynamics. And we think, oh, but a good person, a good Christian, a good friend would not do this.
Yes.
But we need to establish healthy boundaries of what we will accept and not accept.
Yes. Amen. And I'm learning that too.
And it's hard, when you and I have done as much therapy as we have, because I'm with you, girl. I mean, I think I'm going on like 30 years off and on of therapy.
Yeah.
And when other people have not done their work to get healthy, to have healthy boundaries, to speak up their needs, not just once, but this is a need, which means it's non-negotiable. And then that power of being able to release and let go. And then that gets us back into a little bit of a grief cycle, right?
It does. Unfortunately. Yeah, it's hard. Even when you can see the signs, there's evidence. Nobody wants to be unfriended in whatever way, shape, or form. We're not just talking about like on Facebook, but we're talking about like literally nobody wants that, or most people don't, especially a community builder, right? Like I am all about community. Like when the enemy came after me, he came after me hard, and he came after my most important person. And then my whole ministry is community. I mean, it's the platform is gratitude, right? The Lord gave me that to share and talk about, but it's all about building community, doing community well, and it's messy. And I knew this on a low level. Like it's not my first time. I was unfriended years ago by a couple what I thought mature Christian women, and that has nothing on what I've been through in the last 2 years. It is amazing. And I can look back at that and go, yeah, I remember that stung and I survived. Here I am today, smarter with more evidence. But it doesn't mean it's easy. Even after all these years and my age and experience. And I was married to a tough as nails Marine. I mean, that was one of his nicknames someone gave him. You understand the Marine Corps mentality. And, he's the only one I could be brutally honest with. And I could trust that he wasn't going to leave, because he had his own issues. So he was not leaving because he was determined to make our marriage work, which is awesome. And then he came to know Jesus, and that obviously helped. But he helped in that manner that I learned some of these good coping skills. And I'm trying to look at everything, even as hard as it's been, even especially the grief part, looking for, I want to be careful to say this because I want to say something along the lines of looking for the lesson. But hear my heart. The Lord does not take people that did not kill my husband. The Lord did not kill my husband to teach me something. That is not what I'm saying when I say, but I'm learning so much about myself because my life is so different since Bill died.
Right.
And the Lord used him to prepare me, and our marriage to prepare me for some of the stuff that I'm going through now. But I've learned a lot, and there is a lot in it that I'm not going to lose now, right? I can move forward, and I have that knowledge and experience, brutal as it is, so, and, we could go on and on.
Well, what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you definitely believe God doesn't take people out of our lives to say, hey, I need to teach them this lesson through this. Yeah. But it's that shift in perspective. And we are not putting this on YouTube. And I'm respecting Larissa's choice because we were going to delay this. And I thought, you know what? What if we just don't do video? We keep it on audio. But when we're able to shift our perspective, and my fingers are rotating in space right now, to say, okay, this happened. It's not what I wanted to happen or when I wanted to happen or how, but what can I learn and take away from it in order to keep moving forward? And for those of us as Christians, of how do I take what I learned and learn from it to move forward, to keep going, to say in a positive way, God's helped me through this.
Amen.
And this is what I'm learning, because I think a lot of people want to blame God. And I've been there. I was yelling at God this summer when I was, and he can take it. He can take it. I think people are like,
yes,
I can't be mad at God. Yes, you can. He's got
Hello,
this.
Job. Hello. I mean, Job, look what Job went through, and that, the Lord allowed that, but the Lord did not. Job was righteous. Like the Lord was not punishing Job. That's why we have to be so careful. And with my background, my upbringing by both my parents, I was led to believe that I was getting punished by the Lord because I was always being punished as a child.
Oh my, that is so wounding, Larissa. And I just want to acknowledge how wrong that is. And you can hear the emotion in my voice that there are so many wounded 40, 50, 60, and 70 and 80-year-olds that did not have the healthy upbringing that some people were fortunate to have. But that's why we're having these hard conversations,
Yes.
because people need to know that people with strong faith have not had the easy life,
No.
that
No.
it's persevering even though,
Yeah.
and being grateful even though.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because it's neat.
hopefully.
I can look back and the Lord was sweet to prompt my mom to put me through a private Christian school. But I say this with all sincerity, and I love my mom, that I don't know that she knew Jesus. But she put me through a private school, and I could be totally wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, but there was not fruit. But the Lord used her to put me through a private school where I got, and I'm not saying everybody has to go through private school. This is not that chat. But I can remember encounters with the Lord when I was super young because of really great teachers, and had some foundation, very little, but some foundation. And
Seeds.
yeah. Yeah. And this again is why I am like a big proponent of therapy, because some of this I didn't understand and realize. And then when my therapist is like, we didn't even, it's not like on like, I was going to say episode 3, appointment 3, where she's like, well, let's sit down and talk about your mother. And she didn't need to say that. She goes like, it sounds like your mom, or she might have said, and again, she's not trying to blame my mom for everything. She knows I'm an adult. I'm there to, like, when you're paying for therapy, you're serious about, like, I want to get something out of this, and I'm willing to go deep. And even there's been a couple times in our therapy sessions where she's looked at me and she's like, oh, I really feel like the Lord is telling me this, and this is hard. So I don't know if you want to hear it, or, hang on to your hat, and there's been some hard things that she has said and I've had to deal with, and I'm better for it, right? I'm better for it. But that's why I keep going back to therapy. It's not supposed to fix everything, and it may not be for you, but I highly recommend it on some level. Even if you, because one of the things, when like I said, I've done a lot of reels on this, and you have mentioned it too. You don't have to be in therapy every week, every month for the rest of your life. That is not what we're saying here. I see myself probably connected to this therapist, if at all possible, for a very long time, even if I get to a place, and I'm not there yet, where I come in maybe once a month more consistently versus twice a month, or once a quarter, or once a year, because there's just something about having someone that you've built this relationship with that can make a long-term positive impact on your life. So anyways, I know we could go on and on about that topic.
Well, I think it's valuable to talk about therapy, and we didn't know we were going to go this direction necessarily, but it's really important because we tune up our cars a few times a year.
Yes, we do.
But we're not necessarily tuning up our minds or our hearts or our spirits or souls, whatever, different listeners' systems are. And it's investing in your sanity, health, healing process. And not everyone listening has been through big T trauma or little T trauma, depending on your levels. But those of us that have, you need to know that you don't need to go through this alone. And there are professionals out there. And it's not that you have to commit to every week for the rest of your life, or the same therapist for the rest of your life, because I've had therapists walk me through a journey in a period of time. Well, in military moving, sometimes you don't get to stay with them.
Yes.
And for some people, online works. For some people, in-person works. For some people, it's like, okay, now I need a break. I need to process on my own and then move forward.
Yeah. And as a side note, I highly recommend you take notes. I bring my iPad. I have notes from 54 sessions of therapy. And my therapist, actually, I hope this is okay to say, has said, I might want to look at those notes and have them. And I'm like, you can have them. It's our conversation, but take notes, because you're not going to remember everything. And you can, then I go straight home. I try not to make plans afterwards, if at all possible, because I'm always drained. Yes. I go home and then I look over the notes, because there's lots of typos and some need for editing, because I'm typing like a maniac, and I type well, quickly, and I have an iPad. It might not be for everybody, right? but it helps me. And then over the weeks before the next session, I look over them again and I come up as I like last night or the night before, I was thinking, oh, that might be good in therapy. And I just type up a quick, I have next counseling session. I put next for the next appointment. I do this with my business mentor and, anybody who I have, ongoing conversations with. I wrote next counseling appointment. And then I type things in there, and we don't always cover everything. And sometimes I'm like, that's not as important because something else has happened in the interim, but it's so helpful. And when you say that about having different therapists, I started my, what we'll call grief journey with a different therapist. And actually, I saw her before Bill died. And I might have shared this on a previous podcast with you, but let me share it again just in case. I don't know how long I saw her on and off. And then we went, unfortunately, through 2020. And so then everything was different. But I walked away from however many sessions with this amazing revelation that I didn't know about. So when I walked in for our very first appointment and I told her, I'm crying all the time, and this is Bill alive. Bill is alive. I told Bill, I need therapy. I need to go to a therapist. He's like, go, definitely. And I wish the two of us went, but that's another podcast probably. But she told me, she goes, Larissa, you are experiencing what we call anticipatory grief.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally cried every single night for 3 months before Bill died. Every night I kissed him on the forehead and I said goodnight, knowing possibly that was it. And then finally, September 17th, September 16th was the last time I kissed him on the forehead and said goodnight. But it was good to know that this is what's happening. And you and I talked about this offline, but I'll bring it up because I know this is tough. I was telling my therapist in the last month, I said, I am really emotional about my dog. I do not want to lose him. It's one of the last things I have with Bill. Obviously I have memories. 28 years of memories, almost 27 married. And she's like, this is normal. This is anticipatory grief. You know that he's going to die. We all die. He's going to die. And maybe you guys are hearing him in the background. He's a bulldog and he's snoring up a storm right now. But he's going to die. And so but I'm learning to deal with that. I'm praying over him every night and I'm just enjoying him. I'm squeezing the squishy face. But this is all real. And I have 2 friends who just lost their dogs in the last month. And I bawled my eyeballs out for them, So grief comes in all shapes and forms and at different seasons. And I grieve. I'm obviously going to grieve Samson's death, totally different than my husband. My husband was way more important. And we had 28 years together. However, in this season, and I've lost a lot of dogs over my life, in this season, losing Samson will be way different and way harder.
Yeah, because Bill's not here with you to grieve together and to give you that support. Absolutely. And, in anticipatory is very valid and also kind of preparatory, kind of preparing your heart and enjoying those moments. And you're a very intentional person with your gratitude and your grief. You're just intentional and you want to enjoy the moments you have. And I see you kissing Bill on the forehead every night of, I'm going to lock in this memory of enjoying this presence with you, that you are breathing and we are talking and we are praying and kind of locking that in so that you're building that bank of memories of months of intentional joy and knowing that. So I'm with you there.
Amen, sis. Amen.
Woo. Woo. Okay. Well, we're going to transition just a little bit. And actually, just for levity, I'm going to say, all right, what's the weird things you're grateful for right now?
Okay. I knew you were going to ask, and I don't know about well, there is levity to it for sure. So here's one of the weird things. I just came up with one for right now. I didn't run over the neighborhood cat who belongs to a friend recently. The cat is an outdoor cat along with his brother. And I almost ran it over just the other day, just like a week ago, right in front of their house. They live 4 doors down. She knows I'm talking about her. 4 doors down, I turn the corner. I'm looking at this lady who's got 2 dogs on a leash. And there is this cat in the middle of the street, spread out, taking a nap. And I am like inches from running him over in front of his house. And I'm like, thank you, Lord, that I did not, because that's my greatest fear. I'm like, he's an outdoor cat. He loves to lay in the street, and he always comes down to my house because I have a bird feeder. So I'm always chasing him and his brother off because I'm like, you're not taking my birds. I feed them. I'm not feeding them for your pleasure.
We like our birds.
We like our birds and we like our cats, but anyways. And so I sent her a text message and I tagged her in the post because it was part of my gratitude post, not running over my neighbor's cat. That's a big deal. He is the neighborhood cat. Like, everybody knows him. I would be the one known for murdering their cat.
Well, I'm going to correct you there, because
Yes,
that would not have been intentional. It would have been accidental. There would have been no guilt or responsibility.
Well,
that's
no
the word
responsibility for sure, but
regret
Yeah.
if you did not intend for it to happen. So anyway,
because I like
that's a whole nother therapy thing, but I take notes for all my therapy sessions as well. And I'll write a book on it one day.
Yay. Yes.
The lessons learned in therapy.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So our final question will be, and I'll let you think about it just a second. What is something that's unexpectedly happened since you and I last talked?
Okay. And there's been so much, right? But I wanted to share kind of one of the fun things, because there's a lot of not so fun things that have happened that I shared with Hillary off camera, so to speak. But here's the fun thing and the interesting. It's fun and it's interesting. So here's it in one sentence, and then I'll unpack it just a tiny bit. So God will birth new things even while you are mourning, right? And one of the things I say a lot, and I said this before Bill died, we can weep and walk, right? And so we can weep and mourn and keep walking in our giftings, in our ministry. And I praise the Lord for allowing me to continue to broadcast, as you talked about, and talking about gratitude. And I gave thanks for so many things the day that Bill died. There were still things to be grateful for. And someone went and looked for my post, knowing full well that I was going to post at minimum of 3 things that I was grateful for on the day that Bill died. One of those is that we were not alone. I had a friend here that was a nurse. And so Bill didn't die alone, and I didn't witness Bill dying alone myself either. So that's kind of a side note. But God will birth things even while you're struggling and under challenge and whatnot. And so I started a paid membership community less than 2 years after Bill died. And then while doing that, I got to collaborate with a graphic artist for a year. Well, and actually Project Grateful was 3 years long, but one year was with a different graphic artist, where I got to write a monthly devotion and we created elements to craft with together. And so those are not things, I was not praying about those things. I had wanted to start a paid membership group. And so, but obviously Bill got diagnosed and then was dying and then was on hospice and, then 2020 and all the things. And so I was not thinking about it and praying for it, and went to a retreat with my mentor, my business mentor, who is also a Christian. And he said, "What about now?" And I'm like, oh my goodness. And literally within 24 hours, we launched it. And I have done it messy. I was not ready for a million reasons. And God has just been so sweet. This group has helped me. And it's allowed me to operate in my giftings at a level that I've not been able to for a while. And it's just been so, so sweet. The money aside, because obviously with Bill's death, there was loss, right? So but I didn't do it for that. I did it because I wanted to do life with people, with women specifically, because it's women only, Christ-centered. I wanted to do life with women on a level where paying for a membership brings those kinds of people, right? Because I broadcast twice a week. It's ministry. It's free. I've done all the podcasts I've done have been for free. And maybe that's totally normal. I don't know, but because I get asked by people like you who I love and adore and I trust, right? But and I have lots of things I do for free. I've done workshops for free, Zooms, all kinds of things. But I wanted to work with women who wanted to take it next level. And I give it my all, 7 days a week. And we do Zooms every Wednesday night with, Bible study, which was not on the game plan either. Hillary, this is the cool thing. I promised a live once a week, a quick, 10-minute live. And it turned into 1 month. I was like, let's just do a Bible study. What do y'all think? And they're like, yeah, we want to do a Bible study. We did a Bible study, and like 3 weeks into it, I'm like, okay, we're going to have to start transitioning. What do you guys think? And before I could finish the question, do you think we should? One of the gals' hands right up in the air. And she's like, I think I know what you're going to ask. And I said, do you think we should continue doing Zooms every Wednesday night? And they're like, yes. And they have shown up amazing. And it's just been so sweet. But I could have let fear and my grief overtake me. And there are times, Hillary, trust me, there are times where we are not being called. It's maybe our flesh. It's maybe someone else trying to push something on us. But I don't think that was the case with me. And I have learned so much. And what I wasn't planning on doing, Hillary, even in that realm, was having my first retreat within the first year. And the Lord sent a friend who said, you're going to think I'm crazy. I don't know if I should even ask you this. This is kind of new to me, but the Lord's telling me I need to help you. And I'm like, awesome.
Sweet.
I know she's really good at admin. So I'm like, my brain is going, like, what am I going to do? And she's like, I really think the Lord wants me to help you put on your first retreat.
If your friend is feeling that calling to help me with my retreat, you just give her my information and we'll get going. It's been on my heart for a long time. But
it's amazing. I say go for it, sister. It is not easy. It's a lot of work. And there's something so different, especially if you have an online community, which I know you do as well. An online community, eyeball to eyeball, there is nothing like eyeball to eyeball. So that's just one of the positive things. A lot of other things have happened that have not been so positive and fun that I'm working through with my therapist and learning from. But the community group, and they've stretched me. I mean, here's something, Hillary, and I haven't even given thanks for this yet and my mentor just texted me because I'm going to see him in less than an hour. I just did some things on my website that I swore I'd never be able to learn to do. I didn't want to do. This is why you hire people for this kind of thing. And yesterday, the Lord gave me this supernatural energy and ability with that brain fog, both as a menopausal woman and a griever. And I sat here right where we're sitting right now, and I was able to handle a couple things that just weeks ago and months ago and a year ago, I would have been like, yeah, no,
that's not for me. Yeah.
But the Lord was so sweet to me.
This is a shout out to all the listeners. You think there's something that you cannot do. I'm here to tell you, you can.
Yeah, you can.
And it might be finding the right person. It might be finding the right coach or mentor or person to do that service for you or with you. It is possible. I never thought I could podcast and 4 years later be going. I never thought I could create a website or a community. And I put my community on hold, but it's going to be relaunched in the new year. And I needed to do that. So if you're listening, you need to know you can do hard things.
Yes.
You can reach out and get a therapist. Yes. You can look back and give advice to your younger self. I'll just suggest that you imagine the age of that younger self, and it could be any age. And you can reach out to me if you want to understand more on how to do that. Unexpected things that happen. Sometimes it's losing friendships. Sometimes it's partners, spouses, pets, communities. Sometimes the support systems we've built up over days, weeks, years, then suddenly are not there.
Yes.
It is possible. Show up messy and move forward. Larissa, how can people find you if they want to follow up?
Probably the easiest way would be my website. So that's gratefulchick.com. And for those who don't know, it's grateful with an 8, the number 8. So it's GR8 T is in Tom. Don't forget the T, FUL, and then chick, CHICK.com, because you can email me there. You can sign up for my newsletter. The other thing I've done since we've talked, I launched my first newsletter. I'm going to be launching the second one today. This is why I'm like, I've got to meet with my mentor today, right? Because though I've done some, I was able to figure out a lot. I could not figure out this one thing before I send it. And you can find out about our Cultivate community, but I'm also on Instagram as Grateful Chick, the same GR8TFUL. And then if you're a Facebook person, I have a community that's open, public, Grateful Tribe doing community well. So if you're into Facebook, that would be a great place to go. I go live on Facebook and on Instagram every Monday and Thursday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So far, I don't see that changing, but my newsletter would let you know if that's changing. But those are some ways where we can connect, and we're really focusing, because I've made some changes and I've decided, and I felt like prompted by the Lord, that Project Grateful was to end. So I did 3, we'll call it episodes, if you will, 3 seasons of it. And then we stopped officially in October. And it was a learning journey that was amazing. But I also know that I want to focus more on my Cultivate community and connecting with people who are not crafty, even though I love crafting, but crafters kind of find each other. I want to continue to connect with the crafters, right? But also maybe people who are not crafty. And so hopefully the newsletter will do that. And I know not everybody wants to listen to a broadcast. Not everybody understands all that. And that's okay too. We want to meet you where you're at to the best of our ability. So check all those things out. And Hillary, it's just been, thank you so much. You are just amazing at what you do. And it's been fun to watch what the Lord is doing in your life. And you do messy well as well. And we have to be okay with that. We need to have the hard conversations. And even if it's talking about therapy and you make the decision not to go to therapy, right? But we have to have the hard conversations. We definitely have to learn to grieve, right? The Lord is very clear in the Bible about, mourning with those who are mourning, right? Grieving with those who are grieving, because we're all going to face it in some way, shape, or form. So grateful to be able to talk about that, the hard stuff, and also the fun stuff. So thanks for the great question about weird things you're grateful for. That's awesome.
Larissa, I've loved it yet again. Larissa Traquair, Grateful Chick. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Do you know someone who is over the age of 40 that might enjoy listening to some of these stories or interviews? Please help me by sharing this episode. Ask your friends to subscribe and tell them a little bit about it. The goal is so that people will know that you're not alone. Well, I so appreciated to follow up with Larissa on not only back when we recorded Being a Grateful Chick, how to say something and do hard things, but even this conversation of working through grief with your therapist, the grief of loss of friends, the loss of deep relationships, and even the loss of pets can be a super challenging thing to navigate. So I am grateful that we have each other, that we can keep moving forward, that we can cultivate gratitude no matter what. What was your favorite part of today? Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you being an essential part of the Women's Midlife Network. We're connecting women. We're sharing stories and inspiring change. And not just for now, but for decades to come. I am so thankful for you, and I always hope you feel the love. Until next time.